It started with a whisper, not a message, not a greeting, just a frequency buried in cosmic noise. When the signal first arrived, Earth's long-range observation posts cataloged it as background radiation, just another meaningless spike in the cold static of space. But I heard something else. I'm Cade Viral, cultural strategist, linguist, and until recently, Earth's foremost authority on xenosemiotics, the study of alien communication. I've spent my life poring over fractured signals, extinct alphabets, speculative phonemes, and the impossible hope that somewhere out there, someone was trying to talk. And then they did. The signal came from a place we had no business receiving anything from, the Gliese Verge, a blue-lit stretch of space ringed by dying stars and mathematical anomalies we'd barely begun to chart. It didn't travel at light speed. No, this signal bent causality itself. It arrived with such precision that every global receiver, from the lunar comm relays to the Martian echo stations, reported simultaneous reception. That's not physics. That's intent. And that's when Earth got scared. I was on a maglev shuttle cutting across the Eurasian sky rail when my wrist comm lit up with a crimson flag. Unsec protolerte. That wasn't a news alert. That was a direct summons from the United Earth Directorate. My translator AI had barely parsed the call when my cabin doors hissed open and two armored peace guards stepped in. Viral? One of them asked. I nodded. He held up a data slate and gestured toward the door. You're going off-world. Effective immediately. They didn't offer me a chance to pack. My luggage, physical and emotional, was irrelevant now. By the time the shuttle landed at the Istanbul launch terminal, I'd already been briefed, or rather, debriefed and reclassified. The signal we'd intercepted wasn't noise. It was a summons, a diplomatic summons, from something called the Galactic Conclave of Sentient Powers, a council of interstellar species that had, until now, chosen to ignore Earth entirely. We knew they existed. They had never acknowledged us. There were flashes of their existence, ruined monoliths on Europa, dark matter trails curving through Saturn's rings, languages carved in quasar echoes, artifacts without owners, shadows without bodies. Until now, the message was brief, structured like a ceremonial rite, with a cadence that pulsed more than spoke. New flame stirs from the darkness. Fresh minds walk among the stars. Let them come. Let the Earthborn answer. Answer what? No one knew. But one thing was clear. This was not a broadcast to all. It was aimed, targeted. The frequency folded itself around our quantum mesh, slid through encryption, and activated latent code hidden in our oldest deep space listening post. It had been waiting. I was ushered into the Directorate Hall in New Geneva under armed escort. My credentials didn't matter. My academic rivalries, my stubbornness, my past missteps, all irrelevant. I was no longer a curious professor trying to decipher alien echoes. I was Earth's voice. The chamber buzzed with chaos. Scientists, generals, diplomats, AI envoys, all talking over each other. Debates flared, fingers pointed, simulations ran and failed and ran again. The central holodeble showed the Gliese Verge, with a pulsating icon. Contact point Alpha. An admiral barked over the din. We're not ready. This could be a trap. It's already too late. A Chinese ambassador countered. If they can communicate like this, they've known about us longer than we've known how to orbit a satellite. Then why summon us now? Someone shouted. They all turned to me. I wasn't ready for that. I was supposed to advise, translate, not lead. But maybe that's what they needed. Not a general or a politician, but someone who could listen. They're not summoning a species, I said. Slowly, they're summoning a voice. One that isn't tied to power or history or dominance. They want to hear what we are, not what we think we are. That bought me silence. Then came the decision. I would go, alone. The diplomatic envoy would be one person, one chance to speak, to listen, to survive what waited beyond our sphere of comfort. 100 leaders voted. 73 agreed. The others walked out. They gave me 3 days. 3 days to say goodbye to a planet I might never see again. To my sister in Nairobi. To my mother in orbit around Titan. To the ocean, which I touched with trembling fingers one last time in San Francisco Bay. I boarded the Vigilant Dawn, a prototype deep-range diplomatic ship designed for scenarios just like this. Scenarios everyone hoped would never happen. She was fast, shielded. Half her systems were alien-inspired, reverse-engineered from tech humanity barely understood. She could fold space like origami, drinking the distance between stars. The crew? Just me, an adaptive AI named Kira, and a neurosymbiotic translator core I'd helped design. It lived in the back of my skull now, wired to my spinal cortex. Every time I shifted, it tingled, like a whisper preparing to bloom. Kira's voice was smooth, feminine, and just sarcastic enough to feel real. Are you aware you're statistically likely to cause an interstellar war within your first 5 words? I'm counting on it, I replied. We launched from lunar orbit, folded past the Jovian line, and disappeared. Space folding is hard to describe. It doesn't feel like movement. It feels like remembering something that hasn't happened yet. Like déjà vu soaked in electricity. One moment, I was sitting in a pressurized command pod. The next, I was staring at a star so massive it hummed. Gyros Prime. That's what the Conclave called it. A blue giant with rings of metal and gas, orbited by what could only be called a miracle, a station the size of a moon, suspended in gravitational harmony with a dozen satellites. Conclave Star Station. Kira initiated docking protocols. No defenses fired. No weapons activated. Just silence and light. The Vigilant Dawn glided into place like a bead sliding onto a thread, and I stepped out. The docking bay was quiet, smooth, constructed from black alloy with veins of glowing amber. The air smelled like ozone and stone. I expected guards, guns, a diplomatic greeting. Instead, I was met by one being, tall, insectoid, shimmering with bioluminescent panels that pulsed like breath. It bowed, antennae dipping low. Earthborn, it said. In a chorus of clicking tones my implant translated instantly. The Conclave receives you. You are the first of your kind to walk our halls. Come. I followed it. Her. I would later learn, down a corridor lit by pulsing stones. The walls shifted subtly, as if adjusting to my biology. Atmosphere filters, probably. Or maybe it was just watching me. At the end stood a door. Not mechanical, alive. It folded back like a flower blooming. And I stepped into the Conclave chamber. Imagine a senate the size of a cathedral. Imagine tiers upon tiers of creatures so varied, so alien, that your brain stops trying to assign species and just goes numb. Winged, scaled, vaporous, crystalline, bipedal, serpentine, every form you could dream of and more. All of them turned and looked at me. The room fell silent. Then one voice boomed out, deep, resonant, ancient. The Earthborn is acknowledged. Another voice, this one sharp and hissing. Let it speak. Let us hear what it is. No welcome, no ceremony, just judgment. Kira pinged my implant. Mike live, all ears on you. My heart pounded like war drums in my chest. My mouth went dry. I remembered the words I'd rehearsed, carefully written, politically approved. And then I discarded them. I stepped forward, raised my head, and spoke. My name is Cade Viral. I come from Earth, a world you've watched, perhaps even manipulated. You summoned me. I answered. I don't know what you expect, or why now, but I didn't come here to beg. I came here to talk, not for my species' survival, but for our place. The chamber stirred. I am not a warrior, I continued. I am not a king. I am a voice. If you want to speak with humanity, you'll have to learn how we listen. A moment of stunned silence. Then a laugh, sharp, mechanical, from a creature that looked like an obsidian construct wrapped in red flame. Interesting. The ape speaks well. Another creature, reptilian and cloaked in white mist, muttered, too well. A final voice, quiet, melodic, almost sad. Let the Earthborn be recorded. The test begins. My blood ran cold. Test? What test? But the lights dimmed. The audience shifted. And I knew, deep in my gut, that I hadn't arrived at a negotiation table. I'd walked into a crucible. The moment I stepped through the living doors of the Conclave chamber, I knew my old life was gone. But nothing could prepare me for what came next. The Conclave didn't simply summon me to one place. It summoned me to a universe of complexities I hadn't imagined, a theater of ancient grudges, whispered alliances, and a silence so thick it felt like a physical force. When the chamber door closed behind me, I found myself standing in a corridor that defied logic, stretching impossibly far, yet intimate enough to hear every breath of the beings that paced its length. The walls glimmered softly, alive with patterns that shifted like an ocean tide. I wondered if it was technology or biology, but Kira whispered into my mind that it was both. A biosynthetic structure grown over millennia, adapting to every species that visited. Ahead, my guide waited, the insectoid female who had first greeted me. She introduced herself simply as Zyra. Her voice was like a chorus of chimes, layered, musical, but with an undercurrent of steel. She moved with grace, even as her many limbs made a rhythm that was unfamiliar to human senses. "We will proceed to the assembly hall," Zyra said. "There, the delegates will observe your arrival. Be mindful, not all welcome Earth's presence." Her words sent a chill down my spine. The star station. Before my eyes stretched Garros Prime, a blue giant whose sheer scale humbled my human mind. The conclave star station orbited the planet like a massive moon, its architecture a labyrinth of spirals and towers that twisted into the dark void. It was both organic and mechanical, alive and engineered, a wonder beyond human engineering. This was the heart of the Galactic Conclave, a place that had seen thousands of years of diplomacy, betrayal, war, and peace. I wasn't just a visitor here. I was a symbol, a statement, and many didn't want that symbol. Zyra led me to a platform overlooking the central hub, a vast, open space where delegates from hundreds of species gathered. I recognized some from the archives, the towering, crystalline Zalari, their bodies refracting light like diamonds. The serpentine, cold-eyed Vortak, known for their ruthless efficiency, and the enigmatic Nereth, whose insectoid features hid a network of secrets. But for every known species, there were dozens more that defied description. Creatures made of swirling gases, bioluminescent energy, shifting sands, or cold metal. I felt the weight of their gazes, curious, suspicious, and at times, openly hostile. A murmur ran through the crowd as they noticed me, the human. First impressions matter. My first step onto the polished platform was met with silence. I was the only human in this vast chamber, surrounded by beings whose civilizations had flourished long before Earth was more than a collection of bacteria and stones. Zyra whispered, "Remember, Cade, diplomacy is not just about words. It is about presence, about understanding their history and their fears." I nodded, though inside I was shaking. The assembly chamber was structured like a vast amphitheater, with seats spiraling upward, tier upon tier, to the vaulted ceiling that opened to the stars. At the center was the speaker's dais, a pedestal of iridescent crystal that hummed with energy. The first to rise was the Eldrax, a towering figure clad in armor made of shifting shadow and light. His voice thundered as he addressed the assembly. "Delegates of the conclave," Eldrax intoned, "we have summoned the Earthborn to answer a call unknown to any of us until now. What is the purpose of your arrival? What do you seek?" I stepped forward, heart pounding. This was my moment, the first chance to shape their impression of humanity. "I seek understanding," I said plainly. "Not conquest, not alliance, not submission. I seek to open dialogue, to share the voice of a species that has endured chaos and thrived against impossible odds." A ripple went through the crowd. The weight of history. The Eldrax's eyes, glowing like molten silver, bore into me. "You speak of endurance, yet your world is young, your history brief. What can such a fledgling offer us? You stand at the edge of a war that threatens to consume us all." His words were not a question, but a challenge. I swallowed hard. I had prepared speeches, diplomacy manuals memorized, but none of that mattered. Here, truth was my only weapon. "Our history may be brief, but it is filled with lessons," I said. "We have survived plagues, wars, and the destruction of entire continents. We have risen from ashes, forged alliances from enemies, and learned that communication, even with those we fear, is the key to survival." The Vortak delegate hissed from the back of the chamber. "Your species is reckless, naive. You will be crushed by the tides of this galaxy." Zyra's antennae twitched, but I ignored the insult. "Perhaps," I replied, "or perhaps our willingness to speak when others roar is what will save us. And maybe save you too." Behind the scenes. After my speech, Zyra took me to a private chamber for rest. The corridors outside buzzed with whispers, some approving, many scornful. "We are not welcome," Zyra said quietly. "Many see Earth as a threat, too unpredictable, too untamed." I sat heavily. "Then why invite us at all?" "Because the war you mentioned, the collapse of the accord between the Shale Imperium and the Vortak Unity, is imminent. The galaxy needs a new voice, someone unaligned, someone unexpected." I rubbed my temples. "Great. So I'm the wild card." Zyra smiled faintly. "More than that. You might be the only chance we have." The game of ice. Over the following days, I was introduced to the inner workings of the conclave. I met diplomats who wielded words like weapons, assassins disguised as aides, and spies hidden in plain sight. The alliances were fragile, built on fear and necessity rather than trust. The Shale Imperium was a towering, crystalline species with a cold, calculating approach to diplomacy. They valued strength, but prized control above all. The Vorthak Unity were snake-like, fast-moving militarists who believed in survival through conquest. Each side blamed the other for the broken accord, and tension simmered like magma beneath the surface. Between them, smaller races jockeyed for position, many eager to see the great powers tear each other apart. And Earth? We were an unknown variable. A meeting with the Nreth. One night, Zyra arranged a meeting with a delegate from the Nreth, a shadowy insectoid species known for their secretive ways. His name was Silrak, and his compound was a twisting spire filled with the scent of strange flowers and the low hum of bioengineered life. Earth's arrival is troubling, Silrak said, his multiple eyes reflecting dim light. You upset the balance. Some wish you gone before you can speak again. Why me? I asked. Why not destroy us outright? Because you are unpredictable, and because you carry a message they fear. You represent the chance for a new path. I looked into his many eyes, searching for truth. Then help me, I said. Help me find that path before it's too late. The burden of a voice. I left Silrak's compound with a weight heavier than the stars outside. I was alone, yes, but I carried the hopes of a species not yet ready to face the galaxy's brutal realities. As I stood on a balcony overlooking Garros Prime's swirling blue storms, I whispered to the stars, I don't know if I'm ready for this, but if humanity is to survive, if we are to deserve our place among the stars, I will make them listen. Because in the vast silence between stars, it was our voice, flawed, human, relentless, that might just be the most dangerous thing of all. Diplomacy isn't a game of handshakes and polite nods. It's a battlefield where words slice deeper than any blade. By the third day on Garros Prime, I understood that more clearly than ever. The gathering storm. The Conclave's assembly hall had transformed from a place of curiosity and cold welcome into a battleground of veiled threats and hidden agendas. The polished floors seemed to reflect not just the lights overhead, but the sharp glances exchanged between delegates like razor edges glinting in the dark. Zyra had warned me, in this place, every word is a weapon, every silence a trap. Now, standing at the center of the amphitheater once again, I felt the weight of her words pressing down on me like gravity. I wasn't just representing humanity anymore. I was the signal flare in the night sky of interstellar politics, a beacon drawing every predator's attention. The first debate. The session opened with the Eldrax, the tall, shadow-armored figure who'd challenged me before. We convene again. Eldrax's voice rolled like distant thunder to determine Earth's place, if any, in this fracturing galaxy. The Shale Imperium and the Vorthak Unity teeter on the edge of war, and you bring your species into this tinderbox. Why? I inhaled deeply, steadying the tremor in my voice. Because, I said, our history teaches us that isolation breeds extinction. Our survival depended on cooperation, on listening even when it hurt. We come not to fan the flames of war, but to seek peace. A peace born from dialogue, not domination. A murmur ran through the crowd, not all pleased. From the rear, the Vorthak delegate hissed, empty words. Weakness dressed as hope. You do not understand the cost of peace, only the cost of cowardice. I met his gaze. No, I understand the cost of war. The lives lost, the worlds destroyed. We choose dialogue because war is not inevitable. The knife behind the smile. Zyra remained at my side, her many limbs folded like a protective shield. They will test you, she murmured. Not because they doubt your words, but because they doubt your resolve. It wasn't long before the test began. A delegation I hadn't noticed before rose to speak. The Trelkon, a reptilian species known for their cunning and ruthlessness. Their spokesman, a tall figure with iridescent scales and eyes like molten gold, smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your species claims to seek peace, he said, voice smooth as silk. Yet you come unarmed, vulnerable. How can we trust a species that offers words where others offer weapons? What guarantee do we have that Earth will not exploit this conclave's divisions for its own gain? I could see the trap. He wasn't just questioning my intentions. He was planting seeds of doubt among the assembly. I answered carefully, trust is earned through actions, not threats. We come bearing knowledge, technology, medicine, and experience that could benefit all species here. Our vulnerability is not weakness. It is a commitment. The Trelcon sneered, but said nothing more. Quiet conversations. After the debate, Zyra led me through a maze of quiet corridors. You must understand, she said. The conclave is fractured. Every species guards its own secrets and ambitions. We survive by balance, but balance is fragile. As we walked, I glimpsed clandestine meetings, groups huddled in shadow, exchanging whispered words, data cubes glowing faintly between fingers, spies and diplomats, assassins and advisors, all playing a silent game of power. In one alcove, I caught sight of Silrak, the Nreth delegate. His multiple eyes flicked to me, and he nodded once, a subtle gesture of solidarity. Zyra glanced at me. You have allies, but be cautious. Even allies have limits. The price of words. The next session was more intense. The Shale Imperium's ambassador, a crystalline being named Sivrax, took the floor. Earth's arrival, Sivrax said, voice crystalline and cold, disrupts centuries of stability. Your people are untested in galactic affairs. How can we be sure your idealism will not crumble when faced with the brutal realities we endure? I met his gaze steadily. Idealism is what has preserved humanity through millennia. It is what will allow us to survive, not despite reality, but because of it. The chamber echoed with silence. Then, a sharp voice broke through. A smaller delegate, a fragile, bird-like species called the Velis, spoke quickly. What of Earth's conflicts? Your wars? Your destruction of environments? Your divisions? Can a species so flawed truly offer leadership? I could feel the sting in her words. We were not saints. Our history was stained with blood and error. I do not deny our flaws, I answered honestly. But it is because we know failure intimately that we strive for better. We believe progress is a choice, not a destiny. The hidden threat. That night, I received a message, encrypted and urgent. Meet me in the lower chambers. I have information you need. Zyra was already waiting when I arrived, her expression grim. The Vorthak Unity is preparing for war. They've mobilized fleets on the edge of the system, she said. And there's talk of a secret weapon, something ancient, hidden beneath Garrow's prime. My heart skipped. An ancient weapon? If true, it would change everything. It would mean this conflict could escalate beyond diplomacy into total annihilation. An unexpected ally. Silrak appeared beside Zyra as if summoned by the shadows themselves. The weapon is called the Heart of Garrows, he said softly. It is a device capable of unleashing energy that could destroy entire worlds. It has been dormant for centuries, locked away by the original founders of the Conclave. Why bring this to me? I asked. Because, Silrak said, the factions intend to seize it to end the war on their terms. You, human, represent a wild card. If you can convince the Conclave to unite against this threat, you may prevent disaster. I realized the precariousness of my position. I was no longer just a diplomat. I was a potential savior or a scapegoat. The Council of Shadows. Zyra arranged a secret meeting of delegates willing to listen. Around a circular table in the depths of the Star Station, representatives from smaller factions gathered, including the Velis, a Trelcon defector, and a silent observer from the crystalline Shale Imperium. The conversation was tense. We must act before the Vorthak and Shale can claim the heart, the Velis said urgently. If unleashed, it will consume us all. The Trelcon defector nodded. But how can we trust humanity to lead? You are strangers in this game. I looked around the table and said, because I offer what others cannot. A chance to break the cycle. The galaxy has been ruled by fear and dominance for too long. I propose a coalition, a united front, to safeguard the heart and seek lasting peace. Zyra's antennae twitched in approval. The proposal was bold, risky, but it was the only path forward, a voice worth fighting for. As the meeting adjourned, I felt the weight of their hopes and their doubts. I was far from home, standing on the edge of a war that could consume stars. But I wasn't alone. I had allies, and I had a voice born from a species that refused to be silent. Reflection. That night, I looked out at the swirling storms of Garrow's prime from my quarters. The distant stars blinked like ancient sentinels, watching humanity's fragile first steps into the vast unknown. I whispered a promise to them, to the Conclave, to my people, and to myself. I will speak for Earth. I will fight with words as fierce as any blade, and I will find a way to keep the peace, even if it means standing alone. Because in this cold, indifferent universe, a voice like ours, persistent, flawed, human, might just be the light that cuts through the darkness. Dawn of a new alliance. The cold, metal walls of the lower chambers felt both oppressive and hopeful, a paradox that mirrored my own feelings as I prepared to lead an alliance no one had thought possible. The morning after the secret meeting, I awoke to a message that made my heart race. It was from the Conclave's High Coordinator, a rare figure who held influence without allegiance to any one faction. Human representative, your proposal intrigues some. We request your presence for a private council. Discretion is paramount. This was it. The fragile seed of cooperation was sprouting, crossing old lines. The private council took place in a secure, unmarked room deep within the star station. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the faint hum of energy shields guarding the entrance reminded me that outside these walls, where might already be brewing. I entered to find 6 delegates seated around a circular table. They represented a mix of factions: the VE-less, the Trelcon defector, the Nreth, a Shale Imperium elder, and 2 unknown figures I would soon learn were from smaller, neutral systems. They looked at me, weighing me like a strange new species newly discovered. The VE-less delegate was the first to speak. Her voice was sharp and cautious. We have heard your words, but talk is easy. What guarantees can you offer that Earth will not become another power vying for control? I met her gaze directly. I cannot offer guarantees except my word and the actions that will follow. Humanity's history is stained with mistakes, but it's also a history of change, of learning, of survival. I propose that we work not through dominance, but through shared goals. The Shale Elder tilted his crystalline head thoughtfully. A shared goal, an intriguing notion. But the galaxy's history is littered with broken treaties and shattered alliances. What will hold this coalition together? Before I could answer, the Trelcon defector leaned forward. His scale shimmered faintly under the dim light. The true test will be mutual trust, he said. Trust forged not through words, but through deeds. If this coalition is to succeed, it must act swiftly and decisively. Defining the threat, I laid out everything I knew about the Heart of Garros, the ancient weapon buried beneath the planet, its devastating potential, and the impending threat of it being seized by the warring factions. The weapon isn't just a tool of destruction, I explained. It's a symbol. Whoever controls it can force the galaxy's powers into submission or obliteration. We can't let that happen. A murmur of agreement spread through the group. The Nreth delegate, multiple eyes gleaming with interest, spoke next. If the heart were to be activated, it could collapse entire star systems. We must neutralize it before any faction can claim it. The 2 neutral delegates exchanged looks, nodding silently. Their names were Dorix and Myra, leaders of small but strategically located systems that had long suffered under the shadow of the Imperium and Unity's conflicts. Crafting the charter. Over hours of intense discussion, we began drafting what would become the foundation of our coalition, a charter of unity. The core principles were simple, yet revolutionary. Mutual defense. Members would protect one another against external aggression. Transparency. Sharing of intelligence regarding the heart and other threats. Non-aggression. No member would initiate hostilities against another. Collective decision-making. Major actions would require consensus. Each clause was debated fiercely. The Shale Elder insisted on strict penalties for breaches. The Trelcon defector pushed for a powerful joint command structure. I advocated for mechanisms to include smaller factions and independents, because peace could not be built on the exclusion of voices. By the time the first draft was complete, exhaustion weighed heavily on all of us. But beneath that fatigue was a fragile hope. Fragile, but real. Testing loyalties. No alliances formed without challenges. The same day the charter was drafted, a message arrived, intercepted by my team, but originating from a Vorthak fleet commander. It was a warning. Coalition formation detected. Vorthak unity will not tolerate interference, cease actions, or face consequences. Zyra translated the subtext bluntly. They see us as a threat. I knew the stakes had just skyrocketed. If the Vorthak acted, it could mean the end of our fragile coalition before it even truly began. Rallying the coalition, we convened again, this time with a larger group of delegates who had agreed to listen, but with suspicion. I stood before them, feeling the pressure of hundreds of eyes, species from across the conclave, each with their own histories, fears, and ambitions. This coalition is not about Earth's dominance, I said. It is about survival, ours and the galaxy's. If we do not stand united, The heart of Garros will be used to destroy us all. The room was silent. Then, slowly, delegates began to voice their support, cautiously, but with growing conviction. The VE list pledged resources. The Trelcon defector offered intelligence on Vortak movements. The Nreth volunteered engineers to help secure the ancient weapons site. Even the Shale Elder, usually distant and inscrutable, committed crystalline fleets to coalition defense. Diplomacy in action. As the coalition took shape, I found myself thrust into a whirlwind of negotiations, managing egos, fears, and competing agendas. One of the most difficult was with the VE-lists. Their distrust of humanity ran deep, fueled by old war stories and whispered rumors. During a late-night negotiation, their leader confronted me directly. "You speak of unity and peace," she said, as sharp as a hawk's. "But can we trust you when your species has ravaged its own world and waged wars for centuries?" Her words cut deep. I replied honestly, "No, you cannot trust us yet. Trust must be earned. But I ask you to look beyond history, to the future we could build together. We are not perfect, but we are willing to change." The conversation stretched long into the night, a battle of wills and words. By dawn, she nodded, a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Shadows gather. Just as the coalition started to gain momentum, troubling intelligence arrived. Vortak forces were amassing near Garros Prime's orbit, more rapidly than expected. Even worse, there were reports of covert sabotage within the star station. Someone was trying to destabilize the coalition from within. The internal threat. Zyra and I launched an investigation, peeling back layers of deception. We uncovered encrypted communications linking unknown operatives to factions opposed to peace. The saboteurs aimed to fracture the coalition, to trigger mistrust and ignite war. It became clear that diplomacy alone would not be enough. We would need to be vigilant and sometimes ruthless. The first test. With tensions mounting, the coalition faced its first real test. A Vortak fleet warship entered Garros Prime's defense perimeter without clearance. The coalition's joint command convened urgently. The VE list pushed for immediate retaliation. The Shale Elder urged restraint. I argued for a measured response to signal strength without provoking open conflict. After hours of debate, we agreed on a show of force, deploying coalition ships to escort the warship away, without firing a shot. The operation succeeded, but the message was clear. The coalition was fragile, but capable. A new dawn? As the day ended, I stood once again on the observation deck, looking out at the swirling storms of Garros Prime below. The coalition was no longer just a hope, it was a reality. But its survival depended on more than agreements and treaties. It depended on trust, on courage, and on the willingness to face the darkness together. I whispered to the stars, to my people, and to the fragile alliance we had forged. We will stand. We will fight, not with weapons, but with unity. And we will prove that even in a galaxy filled with shadows, a voice can shine like a beacon. Because in this vast, uncertain universe, that voice might be the last light standing between destruction and peace. The calm before the storm. After the coalition's uneasy but critical first test, the star station buzzed with a mixture of cautious optimism and nervous tension. Our success in escorting the Vortak warship out without a shot fired felt like a small miracle, proof that diplomacy, however fragile, could still hold sway in a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos. But I knew better than to let hope blind me. The shadows clinging to Garros Prime, and to the coalition itself, were deep and tangled. There were secrets buried beneath this planet's surface that could shatter everything we had fought for. I stood once again in the command center, flanked by Zyra and the Trelcon defector, Valrek. The three of us had become an unlikely team, a human diplomat, an alien intelligence expert, and a seasoned defector who understood the Vortak better than anyone else alive. Today, we were to examine the intelligence reports on the heart of Garros itself, not just the threat it posed, but the ancient mysteries buried within the planet. Unearthing the past. Our briefing began with a holographic map of Garros Prime, a planet swirling with storms and covered mostly by oceans and jagged mountain ranges. Zyra highlighted a vast underground complex beneath the largest continent. This, she said, is where the heart lies, hidden for millennia. The facility was built by an unknown civilization long before any of the current powers existed. Its technology surpasses anything we have ever seen. Valrek leaned in, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he examined the scans. "The facility's security systems are active, but dormant," he said. "Some mechanisms seem to respond only to the original architect's genetic markers, if that's even possible." I swallowed hard. "So, even if we get there first, we might not be able to control it." Zyra nodded. "Or worse, the systems might see any outsider as a threat and activate the weapon." The implications were chilling. The heart of Garros was more than a weapon. It was a sealed Pandora's box, designed to protect itself with deadly force. A fragile partnership. I felt the weight of responsibility settle over me. If we were to secure the heart and neutralize it, the coalition needed to send an expedition. But who would lead it? I looked to Valrek. Knowing his insight into Vorthack technology would be invaluable. He agreed, but on one condition. The team would be mixed: humans, VE-lists, Trelcon, and engineers from the neutral systems. Trust must be built in the crucible of shared risk. Zyra coordinated the logistics. The coalition's combined resources meant we could assemble a formidable expeditionary force: ships, advanced sensors, and the best scientists and diplomats available. Gathering the team. Over the next days, I worked closely with Zyra and coalition leaders to select the team. I met with Captain Alera, a VE-list tactical genius known for her sharp mind and unwavering loyalty to her people. She was skeptical of humans, but understood the urgency. "I don't trust your species," she said bluntly during our first meeting, "but I trust the coalition." Her words were both a warning and a promise. Then there was Dr. Myron Sarin, a human exoarchaeologist who had spent years studying lost civilizations. His knowledge of ancient tech was unmatched, but his obsession with the heart bordered on fanaticism. "I want to understand the heart's origins," he told me, "not just stop it. There's something profound buried in its design." His zeal worried me. We couldn't afford recklessness. From the neutral systems came Lieutenant Dorix, a steely-eyed strategist with a reputation for diplomacy and combat alike. His calm demeanor was a steadying force on our volatile team. The final piece was Valrek himself, the defector, whose knowledge of the Vorthack would be critical for anticipating their moves. Tensions on the horizon. Despite our careful preparations, the coalition was far from united. News arrived of a skirmish near one of the outlying moons. Coalition forces clashed briefly with Vorthack patrols, the first real firefight since the coalition's formation. The incident fueled old grudges and suspicions. Some VE-list delegates pushed for open war. Others urged restraint. In a private meeting, Alera confronted me again. "If we do not show strength, the Vorthack will see us as weak," she said. "We risk losing everything we built." I countered, "Strength without wisdom is destruction. We must hold to our principles, even in the face of provocation." The debate was fierce, but we reached a tentative consensus. The expedition to the heart would be our priority, a mission to unify our people and prove that the coalition was more than words. Descent into darkness. The day of departure arrived quickly. I stood on the observation deck of the flagship Unity's Voice, watching as our mixed fleet prepared to leave orbit. The crew was a mosaic of species, each bearing the scars and hopes of their homeworlds. The expedition was symbolic, a message to the galaxy that we were willing to risk everything for peace. As we descended through Garros Prime's storm-ravaged atmosphere, I felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. Beneath those roiling clouds lay the heart, silent, ancient, and deadly. First contact with the facility. Touching down near the entrance to the underground complex was surreal. The ground trembled beneath our feet as we activated the entrance gates. Dr. Sarin's excitement was palpable. "This architecture," he whispered, "it's unlike anything recorded. We're standing on the ruins of a civilization lost to time." But the mood shifted quickly when the security systems awoke. Glowing glyphs etched into the walls pulsed with energy. Valrek's voice cut through the tension. "We've triggered something." From hidden vents, robotic sentinels emerged, ancient guardians designed to defend the heart. The team braced for combat, but I raised my hand. "No shots unless absolutely necessary." Instead, we attempted communication, a gamble. Zyra worked to decode the glyphs, searching for any sign of reason. After tense minutes, the sentinels halted, a sign that perhaps the facility recognized our intentions. Uncovering the core, we moved deeper into the complex, corridors stretching for kilometers beneath the planet's surface. The atmosphere was thick with history and danger. In the heart of the facility, we found the weapon's core, a vast chamber housing a crystalline device humming with raw energy. Dr. Saren approached reverently. "This is the heart of Garros," he said, "an ancient power source capable of bending space-time. I studied the console's symbols and controls beyond my understanding." Valrek warned, "We must be careful. One wrong move could activate the device." The weight of responsibility was crushing. We were not just explorers. We were guardians of a power that could end civilizations. Betrayal in the ranks. Just as we began devising a plan to disable the heart, alarms blared throughout the complex. Zyra's voice came through the comms, tense and urgent. "Saboteur detected. Security breach in Sector 7. Panic rippled through the team. I ordered an immediate lockdown. The saboteur was one of our own, a coalition member who had secretly allied with the Vorthack. The betrayal cut deep. I confronted the traitor in the shadowed hallways. "You risked everything for the Vorthack," I said. "Why?" His answer was cold. "Because the galaxy needs order. The heart is a tool to enforce it. The coalition is a dream that will shatter." His words echoed my fears. Rallying the team, despite the betrayal, we could not afford to falter. I gathered the team in the control chamber. "We face enemies outside and within," I said, "but our strength lies in unity. We must secure the heart, not for power, but to protect all life in this sector." The team nodded, rallying to the cause. Together, we devised a plan to disable the weapons core. It would require synchronizing efforts across species and expertise, a true test of coalition trust. The disabling sequence. Working alongside the engineers and scientists, I coordinated the disabling sequence. Zyra translated ancient glyphs. Alara and Valrek guarded the perimeter. Dr. Saren carefully manipulated the controls, his hands steady despite the stakes. Minutes stretched like hours as the energy levels dropped. Then, the chamber fell silent. The heart was neutralized. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the complex. A fragile victory. As we surfaced back into the stormy skies of Garros Prime, I felt a tentative hope. We had faced the darkness beneath the surface and survived. But the battle was far from over. The coalition was tested, and though scarred, it held. The heart of Garros was no longer a weapon of destruction, at least for now. Reflection. Back on the Unity's voice, I looked out at the swirling storms, feeling the weight of what we had accomplished and what still lay ahead. The galaxy was watching. Our actions here would ripple outward. Would the coalition hold? Could trust grow where suspicion had once reigned? Only time would tell. But for the first time, I believed that even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could break through. And sometimes, the greatest strength comes not from weapons, but from the fragile bonds we forge beneath the surface. The aftermath of the heart. The heart of Garros had been neutralized, its ancient power sealed away, but the consequences of our actions were only beginning to ripple through the coalition and the wider galaxy. Standing on the observation deck of the flagship Unity's voice, I felt the lingering weight of our mission settle into my bones. The skies of Garros Prime still roiled with storm clouds, but down below, the coalition's victory had ignited hope and fear in equal measure. The Vorthack, though beaten back for now, were unlikely to forget what we had done. Yet my mind was pulled inward, beyond the immediate threats, to questions that no one seemed eager to answer. Who built the heart? Why was it left here, dormant for so long? And what echoes of that past might yet reverberate into our present and future? A mission of discovery. Zyra and I had agreed that understanding the origins of the heart was vital. It was not enough to simply neutralize the weapon. If the coalition was to truly secure peace, we needed to unravel the mysteries that surrounded this ancient technology and the civilization that created it. Dr. Myron Saren, ever the scholar, was ecstatic at the prospect. "The past always holds the key to the future," he said one evening during a briefing. "If we can understand who built the heart, perhaps we can prevent another from rising." Zyra had proposed a joint expedition, a combined coalition archaeological and scientific mission, to explore the wider ruins scattered across Garros Prime. We would delve deeper into the planet's history, seeking artifacts, data caches, and maybe even living knowledge if any remnants of that civilization survived. Assembling the scholars and explorers, gathering the expedition team was as challenging as it was exciting. We brought together the best from across the coalition. Dr. Saren, of course, leading the scientific and archaeological efforts. Zyra, whose technological expertise was crucial for interfacing with the ancient systems. Lieutenant Dorix, a tactician and diplomat, whose presence ensured we were prepared for both physical and political dangers. Captain Alera, tasked with security, bringing her sharp instincts and tactical brilliance. And Valrek, whose intimate knowledge of Vorthack strategies gave us an edge if the enemy decided to interfere. As we assembled in the flagship's conference room, I realized how fragile our alliance truly was. Old prejudices simmered beneath the surface. The Veelis mistrusted humans. The Trelkon resented the Veelis' influence. I was the bridge, the one who had to hold these disparate forces together. Journey into the ruins. Our landing site was on the edge of a sprawling ruined field deep within the largest continent's dense jungles. From orbit, the ruins looked like broken monoliths and collapsed temples, half swallowed by the vibrant green of the jungle. On the ground, the air was thick with humidity and the scent of ancient stone. Our boots crunched over moss-covered paths and shattered pillars. Dr. Saren was visibly moved. "These stones," he murmured, "are whispers from a time before history." Zyra was busy scanning the site with her advanced equipment, searching for any signs of data repositories or active technology. Discovering the data vault. After days of careful exploration, we found what Zyra called a data vault, a subterranean chamber filled with crystalline storage devices. Accessing them was no small feat. The security systems were complex and, at times, dangerously unstable. For hours, Zyra and Dr. Saren worked side by side, decrypting layers of alien code. The vault revealed fragments of history, a civilization called the Elendari, who had once ruled this sector of the galaxy. They were advanced in both technology and philosophy, deeply attuned to the cosmos. The Elendari legacy. The Elendari, we learned, were pacifists and explorers who feared the destructive potential of unchecked power. The Heart of Garros had been their last resort, a device built to protect their homeworld from annihilation, but only to be used in the gravest of circumstances. According to the data, the Elendari had ultimately vanished, their fate a mystery, leaving behind their technology buried and sealed. The records hinted at a profound warning: power without wisdom is a curse, and the echoes of war can ripple across centuries, unearthing hidden threats. While we absorbed the Elendari story, Zyra's scans began to pick up anomalous readings. Beneath the ruins, deeper than we had initially explored, sensors detected faint but active energy signatures. We realized there was another chamber, one that had been carefully hidden. The possibility that the heart's power was not singular but part of a larger network chilled me. I convened an emergency meeting. "This could change everything," I said. "If the Elendari built more than one such device, our work here is far from done." Political ripples. Back on the flagship, news arrived that the Vorthack had increased their patrols near Garros Prime. They were wary, perhaps sensing our activities beneath the surface. The coalition's political leaders debated fiercely. Some called for a preemptive strike. Others urged more diplomacy, to try and reach a lasting peace before war could escalate. I found myself caught in the middle, advocating for caution. Our strength is in our unity and our ability to find solutions beyond violence, I said in the Coalition Council. But the voices of fear were loud. An uneasy truce. Despite the tension, we secured a temporary truce with the Vorthack, a fragile ceasefire brokered through back-channel diplomacy. I personally negotiated with the Vorthack envoy, a calculating and sharp-minded commander named Kadril. Our conversation was tense, layered with unspoken threats and tentative hopes. "I do not trust your coalition," Kadril said bluntly, "but I do not want another war." I replied, "Neither do we. But understanding the past is our best hope for peace." The truce was limited in scope, but gave us the breathing room we desperately needed. The hidden chamber. Returning to the ruins, we prepared for our descent into the newly discovered chamber. The air grew colder, the walls tighter as we went deeper underground. Zyra's scanner flickered erratically. "This place is alive," she said quietly. Inside the chamber, we found an enormous, intricately carved machine, far older and more complex than the heart itself. Its core pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Dr. Saren was awestruck. "This is the Nexus," he said. "A control center, a beacon for the Elendari, a message across time." As we interfaced with the Nexus, a holographic projection flickered to life. An Elendari figure appeared, tall, ethereal, with eyes like shimmering stars. The message was a warning, a plea. They spoke of a coming darkness, an ancient force that had driven their people to extinction. The heart was designed as a last line of defense against this cosmic threat. "We are not alone," the Elendari said. "The shadows beyond the stars will come again." The weight of legacy. I sat back as the message ended, the weight of its meaning sinking deep. Our fight was not just with the Vorthak or other factions. There was something greater out there, something ancient and dangerous. The Elendari had faced it once, and their fate was a cautionary tale. Preparing for what comes next, we sealed the chamber, but the echoes of the past resonated in every heart. The coalition needed to prepare, not just for war with known enemies, but for threats we barely understood. I gathered the expedition team. "We have learned much, but the galaxy holds more mysteries and dangers than we imagined," I said. "The legacy of the Elendari is ours now. We must be worthy of it." As the storms raged above us, I realized this was only the beginning. The past had spoken, and the future was listening. The calm before the storm. The days after our discovery of the Elendari nexus passed in a whirlwind of preparations, strategy meetings, and uneasy reflection. The warning from the past hung over us like a gathering storm cloud, a spectral shadow cast across every conversation and decision. We had peeled back the curtain on an ancient cosmic threat, a force so inscrutable and vast that it defied immediate comprehension. The Elendari, advanced and wise, had vanished in the face of it. We were now the inheritors of their legacy, the reluctant guardians of knowledge we barely understood. Yet amidst this tension, there was a fragile calm in the coalition. The temporary truce with the Vorthak still held, but it was thin as glass, a fragile peace propped up by mutual uncertainty rather than trust. A sudden disturbance. It was on the 6th day after our descent into the Nexus chamber that the comm shattered. I was in the flagship's command center when the alert sounded, a sharp, urgent pulse of data on the Coalition's long-range sensors. The bridge came alive with activity. "Unknown vessel approaching," the communications officer reported, voice tight with concern. Our screens flickered as the sensors locked onto a ship unlike any we had seen. Sleek, black, and almost imperceptible against the backdrop of stars. Zyra leaned over my shoulder, her face pale. "This technology is unlike anything in our databases. It's cloaked, but barely." The Shadow Fleet. The vessel was not alone. Within minutes, multiple contacts appeared, a Shadow Fleet emerging from the void, moving deliberately toward Garros Prime. The Coalition fleet scrambled into defensive formations. Captain Alera's voice came over the comms, steady and resolute. "All units, prepare for possible engagement. Unknown hostiles are closing in." I called an emergency council meeting. "This could be the darkness the Elendari warned us about," I said grimly. Diplomatic channels open. Despite the immediate threat, I insisted on trying to communicate first. "Violence will only hasten the destruction we all wish to avoid," I told the council. "We must attempt dialogue, if only to understand what we face." Lieutenant Dorix and I spearheaded the attempt. Using all available frequencies and languages, we sent out peaceful signals, broadcasts of greeting and inquiry. Minutes stretched into hours with no response. Then, a single transmission broke through, a cold, distorted voice speaking in an unknown tongue. Zyra's linguistic subroutines began working furiously. "This is no simple language," she said. "It's layered, encrypted, and intentionally obfuscating." The arrival of the envoy. Suddenly, a smaller vessel detached from the Shadow Fleet and approached the flagship under a white flag. We prepared for the worst, but to our surprise, the envoy's crew disembarked unarmed. Their leader was a tall, slender figure clad in dark armor that shimmered like liquid night. The envoy introduced themselves as J-Kor, a representative of a shadow faction called the Voidborn, a mysterious group believed to exist only in legend. A conversation in the void. The dialogue with J-Kor was tense and fraught. They claimed to be ancient guardians, protectors of balance in the galaxy, tasked with preventing catastrophic events like the activation of the Heart of Garros. "Your actions have disturbed a fragile equilibrium," J-Kor said. "The power you unleash threatens the void itself." I pushed back. "The Coalition seeks peace and understanding. We only seek to protect our worlds from destruction." But the envoy was unmoved. "The void watches, and it waits, unveiling a greater threat." Over the following days, as trust remained elusive, we pieced together fragments of the Voidborn story. They spoke of an ancient cosmic entity known only as the Eater, a force beyond destruction that consumed entire star systems. The Elendari's heart was a weapon designed to contain or delay the Eater, but not defeat it. Drikor warned that our recent actions had weakened the seals that kept the Eater imprisoned. Coalition divisions. The news spread rapidly through the coalition, exacerbating old rivalries and fears. Some factions wanted to abandon Garrow's Prime and retreat. Others demanded immediate retaliation against the Voidborn, accusing them of manipulation. I found myself mediating once again, reminding the coalition of the stakes. We face a common enemy, one far greater than any political dispute, I implored, preparing for the worst. With the fragile truce shattered and the Shadow Fleet still near, we ramped up defensive measures. Captain Alara coordinated fleet patrols, while Lieutenant Dorix oversaw security protocols for the research teams. Zyra and Dr. Saren worked feverishly to unlock more of the Elendari technology, hoping to find a way to strengthen the seals or develop new defenses. A personal reckoning. In the quiet moments, I wrestled with my own doubts. Was diplomacy enough? Could we truly hold the coalition together against such an existential threat? Or were we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? The weight of leadership pressed down on me, a glimmer of hope. Despite the darkness, there were moments of hope. The coalition scientists made breakthroughs in adapting Elendari tech, and a few among the Voidborn showed signs of possible cooperation. Dissent within their ranks, perhaps. I clung to the belief that unity and understanding could still prevail. The shadow moves. Just as we began to find footing, a new warning came in. Deep space sensors detected strange fluctuations near the sealed prison of the Eater, far beyond Garrow's Prime. The shadow of the ancient threat was stirring. Our fight was no longer just about politics or territory. It was about survival on a cosmic scale. End of Chapter 7. The stars seemed darker now, the void between them filled with unseen eyes and whispered dangers. But I was determined. We would face the shadows together, because humanity, and all those who stood with us, had something no ancient power could extinguish: the fierce will to endure, to fight, and to hope. Aftermath of the shadows. The tension after the encounter with the Voidborn lingered like a thick fog across the coalition. The knowledge that we were teetering on the edge of an ancient cosmic calamity left a bitter taste in all of our mouths. Every day felt like walking on a knife's edge, with uncertainty twisting the knife a little deeper. We had barely caught our breath from the initial encounter before new problems emerged. The coalition was strained, alliances teetering under the weight of fear and suspicion. Our fragile peace was at risk of unraveling completely, and I knew that how we handled the next steps could mean the difference between survival and utter destruction. A call for unity. I called for a full coalition summit aboard the flagship, where representatives of every faction gathered in a cavernous chamber overlooking the stars. The room buzzed with tension, voices low and urgent, as darting for signs of weakness or betrayal. I stood before them, feeling the immense responsibility that came with being a leader in this crisis. We are at a crossroads, I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. The threats we face are unlike anything we've encountered before. The Eater is real, and it is waking, but if we fall apart now, we will give it the victory. I paused, scanning the room. We must come together, not just in words, but in action. Unity is our only hope. Some nodded in agreement, but others remained silent, their faces etched with doubt or resentment. The fractures beneath the surface. Despite my plea, old rivalries reared their heads. The karate delegation, proud and fierce warriors, questioned the wisdom of working with the Voidborn at all. Their ambassador, a towering figure named Gareth, spoke bluntly. Why should we trust shadows? The Voidborn arrived unannounced with threats and riddles. They offer no solutions, only fear. Others, like the tech-savvy delegates from the Elendari remnants, argued for pushing ahead with the ancient technology we had recovered, no matter the risks. The heart of Garrows is our greatest weapon and our greatest hope, Dr. Saren said, her eyes blazing. We cannot cower behind diplomacy when the very fabric of the galaxy is at stake. The debate was heated and raw, revealing the deep fissures beneath our coalition's surface. I realized that the battle for unity might be even harder than the one looming in the void. Seeking the Voidborn again. With no consensus, I resolved to reach out once more to the Voidborn envoy, Drikor. Despite their cryptic warnings, I sensed that dialogue was still our best path forward. In a secure chamber, I met with Drikor again. The envoy's dark armor shimmered under the dim lights, and their eyes, cold yet not entirely unfeeling, studied me carefully. "We do not seek war," I told them, "but you must understand our people's fear. Trust is earned, not given." Drikor inclined their head slightly. "The void demands balance, not trust. You must prepare, not plead." I pressed further. "Is there a way to strengthen the seals? To stop the Eater from breaking free?" For the first time, a flicker of hesitation crossed Drikor's expression. "There is a way," they said quietly, "but it requires sacrifice and cooperation between all who dwell in this sector." The sacrifice. The envoy's words struck a chord deep within me. I asked for details, and they revealed a ritual tied to the heart of Garros, a complex procedure blending Elendari technology with void-born energies. But the cost was high. One of our own would need to merge with the device, becoming a living conduit to maintain the seals. The room was silent after I relayed this to the council. Such a sacrifice was unthinkable, yet the alternative, letting the Eater awake, was worse. Who would volunteer for such a fate? A voice whispered. No answer came. The gravity of the decision weighed heavily on everyone. Preparing for the ritual. In the days that followed, preparations began for the ritual. Scientists and engineers worked alongside void-born mystics, combining their knowledge and technology in ways I had never imagined possible. Zyra was at the forefront of these efforts. Her brilliant mind found connections between Elendari science and void-born energy manipulation that others overlooked. One evening, I found her alone in the lab, staring at a holographic model of the heart. "Do you believe this will work?" I asked quietly. She looked up, eyes reflecting a mix of hope and fear. "It has to. There's no other choice." Internal struggles. As preparations advanced, I noticed the toll this crisis was taking on the coalition members and on myself. The weight of leadership pressed down like a mountain. Every decision felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of chaos. Some nights, I found myself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars, trying to find solace in their cold light. I thought of my homeworld, the people I'd sworn to protect, and the unknown future we faced. A betrayal revealed. Then came the shock. A trusted aide discovered evidence of sabotage within the coalition's ranks. Someone was leaking information to a faction opposed to the ritual, threatening to derail everything we had worked for. The traitor was cunning, covering their tracks well, but their motives were clear. Fear and distrust had driven them to act against the greater good. I confronted the council with the news, urging swift action. "If we cannot trust each other, we are lost," I warned, rallying the coalition. In the face of betrayal, the coalition rallied. We tightened security, weeded out dissent, and redoubled efforts to prepare for the ritual. Drikor, surprisingly, offered their own faction's assistance to guard the process, a gesture that helped ease tensions. I realized that, despite everything, we were beginning to forge a new kind of unity forged in crisis, tempered by trust and driven by necessity. The calm before the ritual. As the day of the ritual approached, the entire coalition gathered at the heart of Garros' chamber. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation and dread. Volunteers had come forward, but none had yet been chosen for the sacrifice. I stood alongside Captain Alera and Zyra, watching the assembled delegates and soldiers, feeling the gravity of what was to come. The choice. At last, the moment came. Volunteers were called forward, and one by one, they stepped up, each willing to give their life for the survival of the galaxy. But none felt right. Then, unexpectedly, it was a young soldier from the karate contingent who stepped forward, a quiet but determined figure named Kale. He spoke simply, "I will do what must be done, for my people, for all of us." His bravery stirred something deep in me, acceptance and resolve. Kale's acceptance of the sacrifice transformed the mood. Hope and fear mingled in the air, but now, more than ever, we had a symbol, a living testament to the courage of humanity and its allies. I stepped forward, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. "We will stand with you," I vowed. Together, the storm approaches. As the ritual preparations finalized, sensors detected increasing activity near the ancient prison. The Eater was stirring, and the void was no longer silent. The gathering storm was upon us. We stood on the precipice, ready to face whatever darkness awaited. Because in this moment, in the heart of the void, We were not just survivors. We were the voice between stars, and we would not be silenced. Dawn of Reckoning. The morning light was faint, pale against the dark backdrop of space, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. I stood on the observation deck of the flagship, staring at the distant stars through the reinforced glass. Beyond them lay the heart of Garros, the ancient device whose power was the key to sealing the Eater once again. Today, the fate of countless civilizations rested on a ritual older than any of us, a ritual born from the fusion of Elendari science and void-born mysticism. The air was thick with anticipation. The coalition, fractured yet bound by this desperate hope, gathered to witness a moment that would shape history. The Chamber of the Heart. The ritual chamber was a marvel, an enormous, spherical room bathed in soft blue light emanating from the heart at its center. Its crystalline core pulsed rhythmically, like a beating heart, alive with ancient power. Scientists, mystics, soldiers, and diplomats crowded the space, their faces a mixture of determination and dread. I moved through them with purpose, checking on preparations, reassuring worried delegates, and reminding myself that this was more than just a ceremony. It was a last stand against oblivion. Zyra was already there, her eyes fixed on the complex holographic interfaces that floated around the heart. She looked up as I approached, a faint smile playing on her lips. "We're ready," she said softly. "But Kale, he carries more than just the device now. His mind will bear the weight of the galaxy." Kale, the chosen one. Kale stood beside the heart, clad in ceremonial armor provided by the karate. His presence was calm but resolute, the quiet courage of a soldier who knew the cost of what he was about to do. I joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone in this. We stand with you." He nodded. "I'm ready." The room hushed as the ritual began, the fusion of science and spirit. The ritual was a complex dance of technology and ancient rites. Scientists monitored the heart's energy output, while void-born mystics chanted in a language older than the stars. Energy streams from the device intertwined with ethereal light, creating a spectacle of power and beauty. Kale approached the heart and, guided by Zyra and Jrikor, placed his hands on the crystalline surface. The heart responded immediately, its pulses quickening as a luminous bond formed between Kale and the device. I watched, breath held, as the energy surged through him, a torrent of power and knowledge that no one should bear. The price of power. Kale's body trembled under the strain. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and his breathing became shallow. "Stay with us, Kale," I urged, gripping his arm. "We're here." But he was already slipping away, his consciousness stretching across space and time, tethered to the seals that kept the Eater confined. Zyra monitored his vital signs, her face pale but focused. "The connection is stabilizing," she reported. "But this is only the beginning." The Voidborn warning. As the ritual progressed, Jrikor stepped forward, addressing the assembly in their haunting voice. "The seals will hold, for now. But the Eater stirs beyond them, sensing our defiance. This ritual is a beacon, a challenge." A murmur spread through the crowd. The sense of urgency deepened. "The coming days will test us all," Jrikor continued. "We must be vigilant. The darkness will seek to undo this light. Unseen threats." Even as the ritual maintained the seals, sensors picked up new movements near the edges of our territory. Shadowy vessels, smaller than anything we'd encountered before, darted in and out of sensor range. It became clear that the Eater's awakening was attracting other predators, creatures long dormant in the cosmic depths. The Coalition scrambled to respond, dispatching patrols and fortifying defenses. I convened emergency strategy sessions, aware that the ritual was not an end, but a beginning, a spark that could ignite greater conflict. The burden of the conduit. Kale remained connected to the heart, his body a vessel for the immense energies required to hold back the Eater. He was a hero, but also a prisoner of power. I visited him often in the medical bay, where he lay surrounded by life support systems. His eyes, once fierce and steady, now held a distant, almost haunted look. "How are you feeling?" I asked gently during one visit. Kale gave a faint smile, like I'm watching the galaxy through someone else's eyes. "It's overwhelming, but I know I must endure." His sacrifice weighed on me. It was easy to talk of heroism, but harder to face the cost in human terms. Building bonds amid crisis. Despite the chaos, the Coalition began to find strength in its diversity. Delegates from rival factions shared strategies, soldiers trained together, and scientists collaborated across cultural divides. I organized a diplomatic gathering to reinforce alliances and share intelligence. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful, a fragile peace forged in fire. Zyra and Drikor stood side by side during the meeting, a symbol of the unlikely unity we had achieved. We face an enemy that transcends our differences, I reminded the assembly. Together, we have a chance. Divided, we fall. A new threat emerges. Just as we began to feel a semblance of control, an urgent message arrived from the outer patrols. A massive fleet of unknown origin was heading toward the Coalition's heart worlds. The ships were unlike any we'd seen, enormous, heavily armed, and moving with a purpose that chilled us all. Speculation ran wild. Were these reinforcements for the Eater, a separate enemy exploiting our vulnerability, or something else entirely? The Council convened in crisis. We had no choice but to prepare for war, even as we maintained the ritual that held the Eater at bay. A moment of reflection. That night, I stood alone once more on the observation deck, watching the stars blink in the darkness. The ritual had bought us time, but the storm was gathering strength. We were caught between cosmic forces far beyond our comprehension. And yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, I felt a fierce pride in what we had accomplished. Humanity and our allies were not just surviving, we were fighting back. We were the voice between stars, and we would not be silenced. The calm before the storm. The hour had come. After weeks of tension, preparation, and countless sacrifices, we faced the inevitable, the final confrontation that would decide the fate of not just our coalition, but the entire galaxy. Standing on the bridge of the flagship, I gazed out at the looming armada on the view screen. The enemy fleet was vast, dark shapes etched against the void, moving with a terrifying precision. These ships, unlike any I had ever seen, carried a threat far beyond brute force, a cold, calculated will to annihilate. The air around me was thick with quiet determination and underlying dread. Officers moved with purposeful urgency, yet no one spoke above a whisper. Every breath felt heavy with the weight of what was to come. I clenched my fists. This was no longer a diplomatic mission or a mere defense. We were standing on the razor's edge between survival and extinction. The burden of leadership. As commander of the coalition forces, the responsibility for every life aboard this fleet rested squarely on my shoulders. The decisions I made now would ripple through history. I summoned the council to the war room, a chamber filled with holographic maps and blinking alerts. Representatives from every allied race were present, their faces a patchwork of hope, fear, and resolve. Zyra stood near me, her presence a steadying force. Kale's sacrifice lingered in my mind like a silent echo. Connected to the heart, his life force still bound to the seals holding back the Eater. Without him, this fight would be for naught. We face a force unlike any before. I addressed the assembly, my voice steady despite the storm inside. But we have something they do not: unity, resolve, and the strength born from our shared purpose. This is our last stand, but it will not be our defeat. Nods and murmurs rippled through the room. We were united by necessity, but also by belief. A belief that humanity and its allies could stand against oblivion. The strategy of survival. The enemy was methodical. Their fleet formation suggested a strategy not just of overwhelming firepower, but of disruption and psychological warfare. They sought to fracture our alliance by targeting key command nodes and severing communications. Our own strategy had to be equally sophisticated. We divided our fleet into 3 task forces. The Vanguard, led by the Karate fleet, to engage the enemy head-on and hold their advance. The Flankers, an agile strike team composed of Elandari and Void-born ships, designed to disrupt the enemy's formation and target their support vessels. The Reserve, including our own flagship and diplomatic envoys, would coordinate reinforcements and protect the heart. I coordinated with Zyra and Juikor, ensuring every commander understood their role. Our strength lies not just in firepower, I reminded them, but in our adaptability. We will outthink and outlast them. The first salvo. The silence shattered as the enemy opened fire. Bright pulses of energy streaked across the void, striking shields and hulls alike. Explosions rippled through the Vanguard as the Karate fought fiercely to hold the line. The battle was chaos incarnate. Blaring alarms, frantic commands, and the hum of weapon systems echoed through the flagship. I barked orders, directing reinforcements to critical points and monitoring Kale's status through Zyra's updates. His connection to the heart was strained, but still holding. The cost of war. Hours passed like days. Ships were lost. Some entire squadrons consumed by the enemy's relentless assault. I watched as brave warriors, humans, Karate, Elendari, and Voidborn alike, fell to the void's unforgiving darkness. Each loss was a wound not just to our forces, but to our hope. Zyra approached me during a brief lull, exhaustion etched on her face. The heart's energy is waning. Kale's life signs are weakening. If we do not end this soon, we lose him, and the seals may fail. Her words hit me like a hammer. The ritual that had given us this fighting chance was fragile. The stakes had never been higher. An unexpected ally. Just when despair threatened to engulf us, an unknown fleet appeared at the edge of the battlefield. Ships bearing the insignia of a long-lost civilization, the Luminari glided into formation alongside us. Their technology was unlike anything we'd seen. Graceful, almost organic vessels emitting soft, radiant light. A transmission crackled through our comms, the Luminari ambassador's voice calm but resolute. We have monitored the rise of the Eater and your brave stand. We come to aid you. Relief and renewed hope surged through the coalition. This was the alliance we needed, a force that could tip the scales. The final push. With the Luminari joining the fight, we launched a coordinated assault. The combined fleet struck the enemy from all sides. The flankers disrupted their supply lines while the vanguard pushed forward, supported by Luminari energy fields that enhanced our shields. I stood at the command center, issuing orders in rapid succession, watching the battle unfold like a living, breathing organism. Hold the line, I shouted. Push them back. Explosions and energy beams crisscrossed space as the enemy faltered under the relentless assault. Kale's last gift. Suddenly, the heart flared with blinding light. Kale's connection surged, the power coursing through him, reaching a crescendo. Zyra's voice trembled with urgency. He's channeling everything he has. The seals will strengthen, but it may cost him his life. I moved to Kale's side as medical teams surrounded him. His eyes met mine, fierce, tired, but unyielding. This is for all of us, he whispered. The heart pulsed, sending waves of energy that rippled through space, severing the enemy fleet's cohesion. Ships began to explode in spectacular bursts, their formations breaking apart. Victory and loss. The enemy retreated, shattered and broken. Silence fell over the battlefield, heavy and profound. We had won, but at a terrible cost. Kale's body lay still, the light in his eyes dimming. Zyra and the medics fought to revive him, but it was clear the price had been paid. I knelt beside him, feeling the weight of 1,000 hopes and fears converge in that moment. You saved us all, I said softly. The dawn of a new era. In the aftermath, the coalition mourned and celebrated. Kale's sacrifice became a beacon of unity and courage. Leaders gathered once more, not as rivals, but as partners dedicated to rebuilding and protecting the fragile peace we had earned. The heart, now stabilized by Kale's gift, was safeguarded as a symbol of our resilience in the bonds forged in the crucible of war. As I looked out at the stars, I knew our journey was far from over. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and challenges, but together, we would face whatever came next. We were the voice between stars, and our story was just beginning.